Welcome to The Explainer. You know, we've all heard stories that sound, well, just plain fake. But today, we're diving into three that are going to challenge what you think is possible, because they are 100% real.
So let's just start with this question. Can a story be so weird, so completely out there, that it just can't possibly be true? Where do we even draw that line? Well, the three stories we're about to get into are going to seriously test that idea. They're proof that sometimes real life is way, way stranger than anything we could ever cook up in our imaginations. All right, our first story, we're going back to 1956. Picture this, the SS Andrea Doria. It's this incredible Italian luxury liner hailed as the peak of safety and engineering. But in just a few short hours, its name would become famous for all the wrong reasons. So on the night of July 25th, this thick, soupy fog just blankets the Andrea Doria. Miles away, another ship, the SS Stockholm, is sailing right into the same mist. Now, both ships had radar, right? They should have seen each other, but a fatal misreading puts them on a direct collision course. And at 11:10 p.m., boom, the unthinkable happens.
46. That's the number of people who died instantly. The impact was just catastrophic. The Stockholm's bow sliced into the Andrea Doria like a can opener, turning this luxury cruise into an absolute nightmare in a single moment.
As news of the disaster starts to break, an ABC correspondent named Edward Morgan is getting ready to report on it live. But right before he goes on air, he gets the worst news a parent could ever hear. His own 14-year-old daughter, Linda, was on that ship, and she's presumed dead.
But then a report trickles in. Something that just sounds impossible. Over on the other ship, the Stockholm, a crew member hears a girl crying. He follows the sound to the front of his own mangled ship and finds, well, something he just can't explain.
Okay, this is where the story just goes off the rails into unbelievable territory. When the Stockholm hit the Andrea Doria, its bow didn't just smash into it. It literally sliced into Linda's cabin, scooped her up, bed and all, and as the ships pulled apart, it carried her with it. She woke up on a totally different ship, and get this, she survived with just a broken arm. It's an absolute miracle, but it's also a deep tragedy. Her stepfather and half-sister, who were in the cabin with her, were killed in the crash. All right, let's shift gears. Our next story takes us to Indonesia in 1997, and this one is dark. It all starts when a farmer makes a truly horrifying discovery in a sugarcane field, and it uncovers a decade of pure terror. The police investigation quickly zeroes in on a local shaman, a guy named Ahmad Suradji, and he confesses, just like that. But his motive? It's something you just can't make up. He claimed his dead father appeared to him in a dream and gave him a chilling set of instructions.
42. After he confessed, the police start digging up that sugarcane field, and they find the bodies of 42 women, all buried in this strange, ritualistic way. And police suspect the true number could be even higher.
The real horror here is how he did it. It was this twisted, calculated ritual. He'd lure women in with these grand promises of wealth or beauty. Then he'd convince them that part of the ceremony was to dig a hole and stand in it, buried up to their waist. Once they were trapped, totally helpless, he'd strangle them. He'd then take their saliva and rebury them, making sure their heads were pointing towards his house, because he believed it gave him power. It's just bone-chilling.
And his last victim, a 21-year-old named Dewa, her story is just heartbreaking. Apparently, she was scared of the ritual, had a bad feeling. So Suradji got his own wife to calm her down and convince her it was okay. His wife, who claimed she knew nothing about the murders, walked with them to the field. 3 people walked out there. Only 2 came back.
Okay, for our last story, we're heading to Montana, 1986. This isn't about bizarre luck or twisted beliefs. This is about the sheer, unbelievable power of the human will to survive.
It starts so normally. Doug and Kristen Wells get home one night, and Kristen's coworker, a guy named Wayne Nance, is waiting for them. He spins this story about seeing a prowler and just wanting to check on them. They knew him, they trusted him, so they let him inside. And that was the biggest mistake of their lives.
The second that door closed, Nance attacked. He smashed Doug with a metal pipe, forced Kristen to tie him up, and then dragged Doug down to the basement. Down there, he beat him mercilessly and stabbed him right in the chest with an 8-inch blade. He left him for dead and went back upstairs for Kristen.
So Nance heads back upstairs, totally convinced that Doug is dead, that he's no longer a problem. And that assumption?
It was the last mistake he would ever make.
Because he was wrong. Incredibly, despite a fractured skull and a knife sticking out of his chest, Doug was still alive, and he was not going down without a fight.
Running on pure adrenaline, Doug somehow gets himself free. He was a gunsmith, so he stumbles over to his workbench, grabs his rifle, and finds the single, solitary bullet he had left. He loads it.
He can hear his wife screaming from the second floor. So, with all his injuries, he starts the impossible climb out of the basement, rifle in hand, ready to confront the monster in his house.
So just picture this showdown. You've got Nance, armed with a pipe, a knife, and a pistol. And then you have Doug, with one bullet, a rifle he can barely hold, and just pure, raw will to save his wife. He fires that one shot, and it hits Nance. The fight isn't over, so he just starts using the rifle as a club, fighting so hard the weapon literally bends and breaks in his hands.
Nance actually died from his injuries the next day, and when the police start investigating, they realize something terrifying. This wasn't just some random attack. Wayne Nance was a serial killer, linked to a whole string of unsolved murders going back more than a decade, and his killing spree was only stopped because Doug Wells just flat out refused to die.
So let's just recap. A girl who literally gets scooped from one ship to another during a disaster. A shaman who killed for immortality. A man who came back from what should have been certain death to save his wife. These aren't movie scripts. They're just proof of how incredibly strange and unpredictable our world really is.
You know, stories like these really stretch what we think is possible. They show us that reality can be more complex, more terrifying, and honestly, more miraculous than any story we could ever invent. It really makes you wonder, right? If these stories are real, what else is out there?